we're talking about Donald Trump's first rally of the year. I know this. I mean, where do you sit on this question of how much should we be paying attention to it? Because there's a lot of people who say that the reason why Donald Trump won was because cable news played all his rallies, and people talked about him so much. He gave him so much attention. How much of that do you think is true? And if so, I mean, is it different when we're actually mediating his speech as opposed to just presenting it, or are we just in a different era and people's perspective on him is different? So when we talk about him now, it's not just as a freak show; it's as a very real freak show. What's your sense of that?
Yeah, it's a serious freak show. I mean, I remember I've been looking back at my writing when he, because we just had the 4-year anniversary of when he came down the escalator. So, a lot of us who've been writing about him since then went back and looked at what we were saying. And I think there was a sense at the time, this is a clown show. I mean, at the day he came down the escalator, Dr. Ben Carson was leading in the polls, and he was talking about how, the United States is very much like Nazi Germany. I mean, he said that. That was where we were, and so he did seem, they covered him like a freak show. But it isn't a freak show. He's the President of the United States. We can see the results of what he's done and the horrific kind of consequences of what happened. And your question is a good one. I mean, how do you deal with somebody like this? I mean, he's not, as I said in the earlier segment, this is not politics as we've understood it before. This is something different. And it's true that underlying what he says, this sense of grievance, that's a long-standing conservative, sort of appeal, which is, we are under siege. That's a traditional conservative appeal, that all this modernism and change and all this, whatever is destroying the fabric of society, and we've got to fight back. That's certainly nothing new in that. But it's the way Trump does it. It's this kind of, it's very much, I mean, he's the most, extreme demagogue that the United States has ever had at this kind of level of politics. And it has created this world in which his followers live. And, for people like you and me, I think it's important that we keep our eye on this. I mean, we have to watch it because it's definitely, and it's real. I mean, there were a lot of people there. That was a 20,000, person arena. It was full. I mean, I don't know that there were hundreds of thousands waiting outside, as he always says, but, there were plenty of people there, and they were very enthusiastic. So this following of his is real, and it doesn't appear to be going anywhere. It's important to watch this. But as for the media, I honestly don't know. I mean, Fox News covered this rally. CNN sort of cut back and forth, and they had analysis during the rally. And MSNBC didn't cover it at all. And maybe that's the way it should be. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they each have their own mission or have their own way of going about it. And of course, I think the press has gotten better about pointing out the lies and the absurdities of what he's saying. But, we've had 2.5 years of that. Nothing has budged those people. They still, in fact, I read an interview a series of interviews in one of the Florida papers. They interviewed people in line. That thing last night, they just believe what they want to believe. He's been great. He's solved these problems. He's building the wall. He's, putting the rest of the world on notice. He's dealing with immigration. I mean, he's, in their mind, all this stuff that he says that he's successful and that everything's going great, they believe it. I mean, they believe what they want to believe, and each of them seems to have their own sort of discrete issues that they care about. Abortion, well, he's the greatest. He's saving us. The court, he's done it. Well, in that case, it's actually true. He has fulfilled that. It's absolutely true. But, on the other stuff, it's just kind of like, whatever they want to believe. So, I'm not quite sure what it will take, because it does appear that they are, that their relationship to him is not of a political leader. He's kind of he is like a superstar hero to them, and I don't know how you change that. I mean, I honestly don't know that it can be changed. So, the politics of this seems to be you've got to find another way to actually dislodge him.
I could not agree with that last sentiment more. I in fact, not only do I think that it's impossible to shake these people's faith in Donald Trump, I honestly, I just, it's not going to happen.
No.
I think it's increasingly clear that it's not necessary to do so.
Right.
That has to be a different way of the Democrats winning. I think 2018, frankly, showed that there was. We had record-breaking turnout for Republicans, but also record-breaking turnout for Democrats, and we ended up with Democrats winning the largest victory as measured by sheer votes. Right? We have gerrymandering now, so how that goes through that black box is a little bit different. But in terms of sheer votes, Democrats won a massive victory. And what I like to do is we should take a break in a moment. But in the next hour, I'd like to talk about a story that came out this week that Democrats are starting to be aware, I guess. And this is a way we can talk a little bit about 2020 because Joe Biden had quite a week, maybe not the kind that he wanted. Or maybe it was, frankly. He's just maybe doesn't realize what he wants, or whether what he wants is actually good for his candidacy. But there was also a major story this week about how it seems to me, there's two ways to look at it. Either the Democratic leadership in the Senate and the House is completely flummoxed, and they have it reminds me of like a pilot who's lost sight of where the horizon is, or they are just so adamant about making sure that there is an ideologically very narrow set of choices available to the American public, but they don't know how to operate either one of those scenarios, it seems to me.
Yep.
We've got to take a quick break. When we come back, or I should say, if you'll join me in the next hour, we can talk more about this. But it's stunning, and we will discuss it then. I'm Sam Seder. This is Ring of Fire Radio. We'll be right back with more, and Heather will join us in the next hour.